Welcome back. Today, we're not just having a chat, we're diving into a real history lesson on underwater law. To understand why Italy finally has a national agency in 2026, we first need to understand where everything remained stuck for nearly half a century. Rachel, let's open the class register.
With pleasure, Jake. To talk about 1979, we actually have to take an even bigger step back to 1942. Many don't know that the figure of the professional diver in Italy was born, so to speak, inside the navigation code, specifically Royal Decree No. 327. At the time, they didn't call them sommosatori or scuba divers, but palombari or helmet divers.
Exactly. Articles 114 and 116 of that code spoke of helmet divers in local service. It was the era of copper helmets, lead boots, and air pumped by hand from the surface. The 1942 law and the subsequent 1952 regulation defined the diver as a port worker. He wasn't a specialized technician in the modern sense at all, but a labor force tied to the dock.
The first major turning point came with the ministerial decree of 13 January 1979. This is where the terminological transformation happened. The Minister of the Merchant Marine decided that the word palambaro was obsolete. The category of divers in local service, or OTS, was officially born.
Let's analyze this decree carefully, because it contains requirements that make us smile today, but back then were extremely rigid. Article 3 established that to register with the Coast Guard, you had to be between 18 and 35 years old. Only 35. If you were 36, in the eyes of the state, you were already too old to start.
And let's not forget the health criteria. Quote, healthy and robust constitution, end quote. No cardiovascular, neurological, or psychiatric issues. But the real gem was the explicit exclusion for those addicted to alcohol or for the obese. It was an almost military-style selection, which, however, clashed with a still immature training reality.
Here we reach the crucial point of the lesson, Article 3, Paragraph 6. The law required a diploma as a professional diver or technical expert in underwater work issued by state institutes or legally recognized schools. But where were these schools? In those years, there were very few, and training often happened in the field or through the ranks of the Navy, a clear discrepancy between the law's demand and reality.
The fundamental problem with the 1979 ministerial decree, however, wasn't just training, but the operational limit. Article 2 was clear. The activity is carried out, quote, within the scope of the port where the office is registered and in the vicinity, end quote. Imagine this scene. The oil industry was beginning to discover offshore deposits. Eni and Saipem needed men capable of descending to 100 meters in the open sea, and the Italian law responded by talking about port services.
It's a techno-legal paradox. The 79 OTS was, by law, a port worker, but the market demanded industrial technicians. This discrepancy created a grey zone that lasted for decades. While the world raced towards saturation diving, Heliox mixtures and IMCA standards, Italy remained anchored to a decree that only provided for air diving and paper logbooks.
Then came the integrations of the 1980s. In 1981 and 1982, the state had to update the decree to allow citizens of the European Economic Community to register. It was the first sign that the underwater labour market was becoming international. Yet despite these normative patches, the heart of the problem remained, the lack of a standardized and modern training path.
Let's jump forward to see how this system began to crack. We reached the 2000s. Technology has made giant leaps, but the law is still the one from 79. In 2006, the Lazio Regional Administrative Court, or TAR, intervened. A historic ruling cancelled the 35-year limit for registration, defining it as discriminatory. It was the first sign that the old order was collapsing under the weight of new times.
And that's not all. In 2015, a ruling from the Ministry of Labour clarified a fundamental point. Technical standards like Uni 11366 are not mandatory laws, but the employer is still responsible for safety according to Legislative Decree 81/2008. In practice, the state was telling companies, don't wait for the 79 law to update. It's up to you to guarantee the safety of your divers using the best available technologies.
In this lesson, we've realized that the ministerial decree of 13th January 1979 was a necessary pillar, but it soon became a cage. It created the identity of the OTS, but confined it geographically and technically. Italy had underwater giants working all over the world, but at home they were still considered as port operators.
A revolution was needed. A revolution that didn't start in Rome, but from an island that decided to look beyond the port's horizon. In the next lesson, we will see how the Sicily region between 2011 and 2016 took this old decree, analysed it and said, we'll take care of this now.
Get your manuals ready because in the next episode we will study the birth of modern industrial diving. That's all for today, the lesson is over.
But the journey continues. See you next time.
If this episode helped you better understand the history of professional diving in Italy, share it with someone who might find it interesting.